Now, it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Matt Gaetz and Dan Ball.
Welcome back to our show, Anchormen. I strongly encourage you to check out last week's episode. I had Anna Paulina Luna on for a discussion about her life, her entry into politics, and how an influencer can actually enter the halls of the United States Congress. And I would suggest she's doing a terrific job. She's one of the very best we have. But we're out of D.C. this week, back in the mothership, back in San Diego, California, joined as usual by my on-again, off-again employee. He was the founding producer of Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, worked for me on Capitol Hill, worked for George Santos on Capitol Hill. Vish Burra, thanks for joining me again, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
And the guy who has been melting the internet, independent journalist Anthony Cabassa. Anthony has been reporting in Southern California for quite a while now. We got to know his work on the Palisade fires, where he was bringing us right to what our first responders were confronting, what homeowners were confronting, how the city had to confront their own failures in that particular circumstance. Anthony has been covering the battle for Los Angeles. That's what I'm calling it, because that's what it is. And I really wanted, you've been on our talk show, but it wasn't enough time to get into what it takes to cover a riot series like this, a battle like this. I think that this is really a critical point for the country, and really millions of people are consuming this through your reporting. So I just want to kind of hand it to you, Anthony, and tell us what these last few days have been like for you, and how has your reporting shaped your perspective on what's going on in Southern California?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Matt. And Vish, nice to see you, brother. I gotta get some matching shades, man. It's been a whirlwind, really. I think that this is so much more different than, like, let's say the George Floyd riots, which I also covered. Kind of that all obviously started off with kind of people versus the police, and kind of like law enforcement and police brutality. The message here, I think, is so much more bigger than that, in the sense that it's looking like it's shaping up to be kind of Los Angeles is going to be like ground zero for the Trump administration immigration policy. And so I think that what we're looking at is, we had kind of Trump 1.0, where, there were deportations, there was obviously strong border security, but this time around, he's got a national mandate in which the people said, we need you to go into these communities and get these people out of here.
Well, let's delve into that question, because I think you're right. Mm-hmm. And I think it's exactly as the Trump administration would have it. What Anthony said is that Los Angeles is ground zero for the battle for Trump's immigration agenda. Now, I think the left would love the, some random court in Maryland or Connecticut to be ground zero. But when you've got enemy combatants under foreign flags marching in a once great American city, you have all the justification in the world for President Trump utilizing the full scope of his executive authority. And, as we unpack what it means for LA to be the ground zero flashpoint of this national moment we're in, Vish, could you think of better ground for the Trump administration to fight on? I mean, isn't this what they want? I mean, DeSantis was pretty good with the Martha's Vineyard move.
Yes.
But this seems to be so revealing. I mean, I was talking to a guy today who was not a very political person, just someone I know in non-political life, and he said, "You know what, Matt? I'm glad. As much as I hate that everybody's having to go through this, I'm glad the country is seeing what the other side would do to us, what they would subject us to." So one is Kabasa right that this is the flashpoint, and two, is it just as Los Angeles native Stephen Miller and President Trump would have it?
Absolutely. This is 100% ground zero. I was there on Monday in LA as well, seeing it for myself. And this is it's definitely ground zero. LA is the flashpoint. There's so many obvious reasons as to why that is.
But why is that good? Why is that good?
But it's also, and let me tell you this, it's also good because the fight is now on the battlefield where Trump is the strongest, whether it's on the message or on the optics, right? He couldn't ask for a better situation. And let me tell you this. The other side knows it. There are, you know how many reporters I've had reach out to me asking me what I think about what's happening, and they're like, "Oh man, does Trump really want this? It seems like he wants this." And I'm like, and I'm not saying anything to them for many different reasons, but in my head, what I'm thinking is, of course this is where Trump gets to prove and put the pedal to the metal on his message, on his campaign promises, right? This is what
fine. Let's grant that premise for the sake of argument. Is it a symbiotic relationship with Gavin Newsom? Does Gavin Newsom want LA County to be the flashpoint of this as well for his own ambitions, or would he far prefer to be like doing Charlie Kirk podcasts and saying men and women's sports aren't really cool anymore and making some sort of Chad tack to the middle?
No. I think that he wants it. I mean, he already said, he's daring the administration to come arrest him. I think he wants it. And remember, we saw that Glenn Ivey clip of that town hall where these supporters are demanding, are you ready to get arrested to defend the people, right? And it looks like Gavin Newsom is saying yes. Now, the funny thing is, to me, that I first thought of Gavin Newsom as like a sociopathic like operator, but he's actually way more clumsy than that, it seems. And especially if you saw his address, his emergency address the other day, where he came out and there was no audio on it, like, and it was like a big moment, and some staffer just blew the audio on the whole thing. Man. So if that had ever happened to you with me or Santos, you'd have been in deep trouble. Or Bannon, right? All right. So I think he wants it too. But this is a spot that he's just going to lose, because as long as Trump comes out pounding not just the message but the resources to quell this thing, it's a win for Trump.
All right, so we've established that this is the launch point for this movement. But now, Anthony, bring us into the reporting, bring us into kind of where you first go to encounter some of these images that you've been displaying for the world, that we've been showing on this podcast, that are very stark, that show the damage, the unrest, and the violence.
Yeah. So I grew up and was born in LA County. And so what's kind of cool about being an independent journalist out here is that a lot of people have moved out of LA County, including other journalists that originated here in LA, and they just moved on to greener pastures, I guess. But so me staying here, I've had the opportunity to, when I see things happening, I just drive right down, and it takes 20, 30 minutes to get there. And that's important for this reason. I got there on Friday when it actually all started. So this is pre any thoughts or statements by the president of this administration about the National Guard coming out. Mm-hmm. And that's important because Gavin Newsom is making it seem like it was a National Guard deployment that started the violence. But some of the videos that you just played were actually from the day before, Friday. So this video right here that's being played, that's Friday. That's the violence that was already happening. And right here on the left-hand side are the DHS agents that are trapped inside. There you go. You can see them. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the resources. That's why, and the thing is, this is federal property right here. So LAPD really doesn't have any jurisdiction, from my understanding, to just go in there and grab these protesters, because that's federal property. And so what's happening here is they're viciously attacking DHS agents. They were launching items at them. That this very same day, there were protesters in this crowd that were grabbing hammers and breaking down public property cement.
Where were they getting do you bring your own hammer?
Yeah,
or is there some sort of like distribution of cinder blocks or hammers or anything like that?
A lot of these anarchists that embed themselves into these protests, they already bring the equipment with them. They have tactical gear. They have small weapons.
What are we seeing here with some of these?
So this is actually Saturday, the day after, and this is pallets of brick that I had discovered. So this is technically a Home Depot. So a lot of people were like, well, it's a Home Depot. It shouldn't be a surprise. But if you watch the full clip, it's the only pallet there. That's why I kept zooming in. And I'm like, well, sure, it could be a Home Depot, but where's the rest of the pallets? Like, there's no pallets of anything else. There's no pallets of manure. There's no pallets of anything else Home Depot sells except for the bricks. And look, it's outside the gate. The gate is closed. There's 2 pallets right outside the gate, meaning anyone can just walk up, and you see the rest of the pallets all the way in the back. And what are the odds that, of course, the pallets are there within striking distance of the DHS agents? And of course, the protesters saw them, and started breaking them down, and they started making barriers with them. This is a perfect example right here. But then they were also breaking them down to throw at DHS agents. So we had 2 full days, Matt, 2 full days of quote unquote peaceful protesting before there was even any talks of the National Guard being activated. And one of the most surprising things to me was that the LAPD themselves, their press office, came out and said that they had 2 successful days of peaceful protests without incident. But my footage shows otherwise. And so the problem is that you had Maxine Waters, you had Gavin Newsom, and you had LA Mayor Bass and LAPD putting out these statements, which if you kind of look into the LAPD union, you'll see that they've endorsed Karen Bass, and there's kind of like some deals being made there. Even after the Palisade fires, one of the people that were openly vocal of supporting Karen Bass's actions post-fire was the LAPD union. They were saying like, hey, no, she's doing a great job, So not knocking the police officers, but sometimes leadership. And if you take a look at LA Fire Department right now, they're under investigation. They just fired the main union guy. And it looks like there's embezzling money. So these unions are in bed with Democrats.
With the political establishment of
Absolutely.
Of a given town.
So if you want to go into like who's funding all of this, you look no further than the unions, specifically the teachers' unions out here.
SEIU
UCLA,
seem to have
SEIU
an role.
Vish,
you were covering the SEIU rally, and it was shocking to me that such a mainstream organization would be platforming voices that were calling for socialist revolution.
Yeah.
Is it union members who are going to these rallies?
There was definitely a ton of union members. You could identify the union members with their purple shirts that they were wearing. The place was littered with them. I mean, the whole thing was organized by them. They were working the gate. They were giving away free food. Obviously, this. By the way, the stage set was so nice. Like, there is some serious money being put behind this. Good stagecraft. The location is great. It was just like it was definitely well thought out. And another thing that I want to point out to just the SEIU being involved in what Anthony's talking about with these guys bringing hammers and smashing concrete and all this stuff. That's not just like instincts. That's training, right? Like there are people who are being taught this stuff on how to do it, how to identify, use the environment to your benefit, right? There's concrete there. Bring a hammer. You could smash anything and turn it into projectiles immediately on the fly, right? Like, these are the kinds of things that normal people aren't thinking about, and even if they were on the street, wouldn't do it. So these are clearly these are operators, right? Whether that it's the rally at the SEIU or on the street, these protesters, it's highly organized. It's definitely highly funded, and you could just go and see it for yourself of how smoothly they move from one thing to the other.
We're here with independent journalist Anthony Cabassa. He's been covering the battle for Los Angeles, been covering it exquisitely well. One thing I was wondering, what's the deal with lighting the Waymos on fire?
Yeah, that was such an interesting development because I've actually had like reporters from the tech world. Usually when I report, it's usually like the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Like, hey, can we interview you about what exactly happened? This time around, because specifically of the Waymos, I had like Business Insider, Tech Insider. They want to know like why the Waymos. So I think that the connection here is that some people maybe feel that they targeted the Waymos because of this new AI kind of like tech revolution. Obviously, you have the robo-taxis just launched in Texas. Waymos have been around for some time now, right?
Oh, wait. So you think it's a political statement? Because my assumption was just a Waymo would be easier to overcome and light on fire than a car otherwise with a driver.
Well,
but what you're saying is it that the immigrants actually are mad that the Waymos are taking away the illegal immigrant Uber jobs and illegal immigrant Lyft jobs? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what Business Insider and Insider Tech are thinking. They're thinking that this is why they wait about. But I actually agree with you.
No, they're just
because I've been protesting. I've been covering protests for years. It doesn't need to be a Waymo. It can be anything. It can be, I mean, there's buildings there. There was businesses that were looted. It had nothing to do with tech or AI. I agree with you. They just see something. I think that when they saw the Waymos, obviously there's no people driving it, right? Because if you see, like, if you're passing a protest and there's a family inside with kids, which I'm sure you've probably seen some videos where families with kids and they're like, I've got kids in the car, please just let me leave, you know, etc. They usually let them through. Sometimes they'll kick the van, sometimes whatever, but they won't set it on fire. But I think with the Waymo, what they saw was, you know, they were all lined up next to each other. They're autonomous, and they're probably thinking, well, these are, you know, the company that owns it make millions. They can just file an insurance claim. Who cares? Let's just set them on fire. And so that they, you know, once they started beating one up, mob mentality kicks in. They start beating up all 5 cars, and then they set them all on fire.
Will future Waymos have to have riot resistance countermeasures, Vishpura?
I mean, they can try, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're just going to not have Waymos in these cities where, you know, especially if you have populations like this that are just going to come clean out your fleet.
So
you know?
Anthony, you mentioned the businesses that have been looted, and if you watch the mainstream media right now, there's a real effort to try to say this was all Trump's fault. You know, had Trump not engaged, this would really all be like, you know, very kumbaya Woodstock. You have completely disabused the country of that narrative with video evidence in this program and in many others that you've done. But like, is there a single business owner who has had, like, you know, a Mexican flag bash in their windows, who's had some immigrant horde run through and snatch up a bunch of stuff? Is there a single one of them who you think blames Trump? Or do you think that there's a broad recognition that these sanctuary policies invite people in whose first act is one of lawlessness, and you are not able to have reasonable enforcement of any law because you don't have a baseline of appreciation for those laws? How do you see it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in talking with business owners, and you know, I've been talking to business owners since the Floyd riots, and even before that, there's just always civil unrest. There's always high homicide rate. Homelessness is like the number one thing. Talk to any business owner in downtown LA. The thing they hate the most is that they have to come in earlier than they usually do because they have to kick out the homeless from in front of their shop, and they got to clean up all the pee and all the poop and all the drugs that they've been taking overnight, whatever the case might be. It's just getting to the point. I'm sure you've probably seen that video where there was a business owner that just took a hose to a homeless man because he refused to move out of there. And then they went and arrested the guy that was watering them down.
Oh, there's not a jury in Florida that would convict that man.
Right, exactly.
Not a jury in Florida.
So the sentiment is from these business owners is this is just another day in LA. Today it was looting. Tomorrow it'll be an assault, you know, whatever. So it's not that maybe they saw it as a political motive. It's like, oh, this is Trump's fault. To them, if you really sit down and talk with them, they'll just tell you this is just another day in LA. Whether it was a break-in, whether it was politically motivated, doesn't matter. These things happen all the time. Businesses getting looted, business being broken into, homeless people going in and stealing because there used to be a policy where as long as you steal less than 950, I'm sure you've seen it. There used to be signs on the street saying, remember, if you're going to steal less than 950 so you don't go to jail. It's just insane. And so it's just policy after policy. And people are looking, you know, these business owners are looking at people like Mayor Bass. And so imagine being a business owner and you just got your entire store ransacked. And you're looking at Mayor Bass like, what are you going to do about it? And she's like, hey, guys, so today's protests were without incident. And it was peaceful. This business owner's like, are you effing kidding me? Like, look at my shop. I just lost everything. And, you know, when I was out there in Paramount on Saturday in the Compton area, there were actually immigrant families there. I spoke to some immigrant families that own businesses, and I was talking to them in Spanish. And I'm like, how do you feel about this? And they're like, in Spanish, they were telling me, this is disgusting behavior. Like, we came to this country and now we have this business and now we're fearing for our life that our businesses are going to be burned down. What is the city doing about this? What is the mayor doing about this? And so it was kind of like this contrast because, you know, you have these people out there waving national flags, foreign flags, etc. I even took pictures of people with communist flags. And here you have like the immigrants that have done it the right way, started their own business. This is all they have. And now they're like, I'm about to lose everything because the city's not taking care of this. And so Friday you had stand down orders. Saturday you had stand down orders because
What's a stand down order?
so basically what a stand down order is, so Friday the DHS agents were being assaulted. Mayor Bass had already said that these attacks were happening because of the Trump administration's increase of ICE raids. And so what the city didn't want is the illusion that LAPD was helping ICE to any capacity, because they don't want people to correlate that LAPD is helping ICE, even if it's just helping them take care of the protesters. So all day Friday, you had Mayor Bass and city council members saying that in no way, shape, or form, and they were telling the immigrant community, don't worry, we will not use a single police officer to assist with the ICE raid. And so for hours.
Well, that puts a target on their backs.
That's exactly what it did. So for hours, DHS agents were assaulted as LAPD just set up a perimeter and did nothing.
That must have been heartbreaking even to those cops.
Yeah.
Those cops don't want to be caught in the middle of stuff like that.
No.
It's politics, pure
But
politics.
there's a feature here where denial becomes an essential component of the strategy, right? They have to deny the videos that you've captured exist on the activities in Los Angeles pre-Trump's order on the National Guard. Then they have to sort of deny that the harm caused by this battle doesn't just impact police or people on the right. It affects immigrants. It affects people in poor communities, people who actually expect when they call 911 that LAPD will show up and protect them because they pay their taxes. And I wonder where that next thread of denial goes, because we're going to see this spread. We talk about LA as the flashpoint, and it may be the most acute presentation of this behavior, but you're going to see this stuff go across the country. We're already getting reports that municipal police departments are preparing for it. What are they going to ask us to deny next?
I'm not sure, but I mean, it's spread already, Matt, to New York, Chicago, Dallas. There's a big protest coming up on Saturday, with the No Kings thing too, and that's nationwide.
With the Walmart lady.
That gets me. That makes my blood boil so much.
Are you a Walmart shopper? I have spent a lot of money at Walmart.
No, actually, New York. I am a proud New Yorker, where we've actually managed to keep Walmart out of the 5 boroughs, and they tried really hard, and we defeated them because we didn't want their cheap products and their cheap labor, subsidized products from China, and their labor standards invading our city. We love our small businesses in New York City.
Going to the Walmart is like a core feature of life in any like SEC state in the American South.
Yeah, well,
but now Walmart's ties to these riots and protests.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I think about everything.
We should say the person, right? It's this
Christy Walton lady.
Christy
right?
Walton. Yeah. To be clear, not the Walmart enterprise. Christy Walton, who is an heiress to that fortune, one of the wealthiest women in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, just think about, everything that, like you said, from the parts of the country that you're from and where Walmart is a lifeblood, right? Everyone has, spent their money and their livelihoods there in some capacity, and now that's being used to fund these riots all over your country. And who knows how. By the way, when you see them say, "Oh, we're organizing for nonviolent action," that's exactly the moment like violent action takes place, and all this No King stuff has it. I mean, I am just hoping that police departments all across the country are not infected with this same politicized madness that we're seeing in LA.
Even the branding of No Kings, isn't there sort of an implicit call for violence in that? Because when America thinks about our relationship with a king, we think about liberation, revolution, the Revolutionary War. Like it's very evoking of that. And if the FBI was targeting MAGA grandmothers for liking a GIF that had the Betsy Ross flag on it
right.
as a domestic terrorist, then certainly I think the call to like revolution is a lot more explicit in the No Kings movement than you saw in some of the people that were in favor of the Second Amendment or had hashtag build the wall in their profile. Anthony, as you've been following this, one of the questions I keep getting, is it getting worse or is it getting better? Or do you see this kind of reaching a stasis, or are we in a moment where it's building?
So I think that it was so interesting because when Friday went down, I have a private Telegram community of like subscribers. I've got about 300 people there, just people that support my work, and it's kind of where I go to vent and kind of give my political commentary, an opinion piece. And on Saturday morning, before anything happened on Saturday, in post Friday's violence, I actually predicted that it was going to get worse. And I said, the reason why I think it's going to get worse, and I think it's still going to get worse still, is because, again, California is such a pro-immigrant and even illegal immigrant state that Democrats here hold the power because of how much they virtue signaled to the immigrant community that they will always be safe here. I'm actually just waiting for the day that Gavin Newsom sends out a national alert service. If you are an illegal immigrant, come to California. We will protect you from Donald Trump. And what was so funny about Newsom's address yesterday is that I truly believe that that was his first presidential campaign address. And what are the odds that it started with no sound, right? And so that's why it's so comical, because it's like this was supposed to be his moment. He's in office. He's got the flags behind him, well-groomed, slick hair, right? And he's like, this is, and the title of it was Democracy in a Crossroads. So it's an inflection point in our country, right? And so the Democrats are kind of have their backs against the wall because they've made the immigrant community and such a foundational pillar of what the party is here in California, that now when federal government is in here doing their job, the immigrant community, whether legal or illegal, are looking at Democrats are like, hey, for years you've been saying that we are the most important people, that we are the backbone of California. Well, put your money where your mouth is. What are you going to do about these federal agents? And so that's why there's stand-down orders to local law enforcement and state law enforcement. That's why you have city councilmen on loudspeakers talking about how the fascists are coming and raiding, and that you need to stand up and rise up. One thing that people don't know about Saturday, about that Home Depot, it was all started by a city council member. Because what he noticed, and he was just running out doing like an errand or something, and he posted a video saying that he noticed an unmarked black vehicle go into a place across Home Depot. So he speculated, I think the federal government is here. So he activated all these protesters start going. And what's crazy is that they actually didn't raid that Home Depot. That place was a staging area so that ICE agents can go out and raid different cities. And I can actually report to you guys here, this is exclusive, I actually got invited to an ICE embed this week. And I got to see who these ICE agents working with FBI, DHS, and now I can actually report, because the New York Times posted it today, but I actually knew this yesterday, that the National Guard is being trained to go out with ICE agents because of the targets that is now on ICE agents' backs. So they're going out with Humvees to do these ICE raids across LA. And I've got the pictures to prove it. I still got to like blur out faces here and there per their request. But, you know, they showed me the profiles of the people that they're targeting. These are people that have committed some of the most heinous acts imaginable. People think that like, oh, ICE is going out and they're just going to grab your grandma. You know, it's like, well, I was in an embed and I got to see the profiles. They showed me the long rap sheet. You know, there was a guy that has been here and of course, open borders policies for 4 years under Biden. These people are just able to come back and come back and come back. They get it taken back to Mexico. Who knows how the judicial system is out there? You know, who knows how many judges are bought off by cartel? But these people are somehow able to come right back a couple months later, or sometimes weeks later. And so what we have in California is, you have Gavin Newsom that just spent maybe close to 6 months podcasting and showing how he's willing to reach across the aisle and be kind of a moderate and like, oh, look, I'll sit down with Charlie Kirk and laugh and say, you know, cap, you know, and say these things, these buzzwords that the younger generation is saying, and showing people I'm willing to, you know, again, reach across the aisle for the sake of democracy. But now it's shifting. Now everyone's looking to Newsom because, again, Los Angeles, California is ground zero. Because if Donald Trump can't show the nation that he's willing to go above and beyond to fulfill his promise that he was elected to do, then what does he expect to do in other states like Oregon or Washington, right? So I think the operations are going to expand to these blue states, but California is like the bulwark. And so people are looking at, you know, to Gavin Newsom, the left liberals. Just watch in the next couple months what's going to happen. Gavin Newsom is going to be propped up as the savior. he's going to be the complete antithesis to Donald Trump. And when he goes to run, he's going to show all these clips of children separated, children deported, all these clips, and he's be like, vote for me. And what's kind of scary to think about is that if the Trump administration, not necessarily Trump, because I think he's doing everything he can and he's shown that he means business, but if the Trump administration, if the FBI, the DOJ don't go down with the hammer as they should for the next couple of years, what I fear is, think of all, the federal people, government officials or workers, USAID, all these places that have been defunded, all these people that have been fired. Doesn't matter what their political leaning is. They might have even voted for Trump, and they're like, "Damn, I'm out of a job. I didn't think it was going to hit me." And then you have the sob stories of people getting deported. I have a friend, and this is this is very real, and this is something that we need to acknowledge. Is I know Trump supporters that were diehard Trump supporters. They voted for him, and now they're just like, I just got I had no idea my best friend of 20 years was an illegal immigrant. They just got deported. I interviewed people yesterday during the protest, and I asked them, "Why are you here?" And they're like, I'm a Republican, but my best friend's both parents, they just got deported. I had no idea that they were that. So you're going to have a lot of people that through sympathy might be rethinking how they vote in 2026 and say, maybe I went too far, but that's the idea. Gavin Newsom and Democrats are going to paint this thing like, you made a mistake, here's how you correct it, elect us. And what I fear the most, just to end it real quick, what I fear the most is that going to be enough to swing the pendulum back the other way? And what I fear the most is, you kind of have a weak GOP right now. Democrats will take full power. You thought 4 years under President Biden and the pandemic lockdowns were bad? Just wait till what comes. Should Democrats get elected in 2026, retake the House, retake the Senate, and if they win the presidency in 2028, it's scary stuff to think about, because look at what they're willing to do right now. It's going to get a lot worse in 2028. So I hope this administration is listening, and I hope that people are laying down the law, and Speaker Johnson is able to grow a bigger spine and really hey, we're not messing around here,
Yeah, I don't know that Mike Johnson's the savior of the Republic, but I would push back and say this: the revealing response from Democrats, I think, takes a lot of those suburbanites that voted Democrat in the 2018 midterms, for example, and it swings them to the Republican side, because Democrats are showing you what they would do with power. And it is very scary, and it is very racialized. And I think that even the people who don't like the fact that there might be someone who they think has made a positive contribution to the country that has to leave now, they have to acknowledge that's what Trump said he was going to do. You may not like it.
Right.
It may be someone that you think on par we're better off with, but this was the plan. What are Democrats going to do? Throw Elon Musk in jail, make Tesla illegal, and go light 10 Waymos on fire if they get power to start a city council meeting? I know they're not going to start with the pledge and the prayer, but adjudicate this for us, Vish, because Kabasa is saying there is a risk of pushing too hard here. I am the most exciting part of your response to me is that we may be lashing guard resources to ICE resources to accelerate the deportations, and how delightful that would be if the way these woke-topians poked the bear in Los Angeles County then resulted in a nationwide mobilization of the National Guard to go assist ICE in deportation efforts. That would be the chef's kiss, but I'll let you adjudicate it for me.
I think that there is something to what Anthony is saying, where there might be a few people who turn and say, yeah, I'm a Republican, but I think Trump's gone too far with these deportations. I think that number is fewer than the people who would be upset if Trump doesn't get a handle on the situation right now, the riots, because that was a big part of a lot of people who are on our side that were upset in 2020 when the George Floyd riots, went on for as long as they did. We talk about the Rodney King riots in LA and all this stuff. The Rodney King riots were 6 days, right? That was it, and it was done.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Because it was so searing on the national consciousness.
Right. And so
You read about that stuff in social studies class.
exactly. And so now think about that. If you allow these things to go on longer than the Rodney King riots, this is the stuff we should be teaching. But it's also, I think that is a big problem. That if that and with the mandate, Trump should understand that you don't want to lose the energy of your base. I think that's why a response here needs to be.
He hasn't.
You know, it has to be strong on this.
I also think how you map out these networks and deal with them is really important. Okay. Any group that has funded these riots, organized them, increased their criminal acuity, deserves to be treated like they were funding January 6th. They need to have their bank accounts frozen. I'm not talking about subpoenas. You know, Rudy Giuliani didn't get the benefit of a subpoena.
Right.
He had federal agents showing up at his apartment. You know, Roger Stone didn't have the benefit of, hey, come, let's talk about this. They went and drug him out in his underwear at gunpoint. And so I think that we are now to the point in the battle for Los Angeles where really, really great people like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel need to be focusing resources on the financial networks, okay? Rounding up some thugs or some gangbangers or some hood rats and locking them up, that is not what this moment calls for.
No.
I am not interested in the quantity of arrests of people lighting Waymos on fire. I'm interested in how hard we pull on these networks, and we have the tools to do it. I know the people who are in these jobs in the federal government. I know they are smart. I know they are capable. I know that they appreciate the context that we're living in. And what Anthony's right about is, God forbid, if this thing swings back the other way, they're going to activate these violent networks with the backing of the government.
Yeah.
Right now, they're doing it in the face of the government.
Right.
And if that is not quelled and put down, we are looking at something very dark.
Well, I think if I were in the administration right now, I'd be licking my chops at this situation. You have the people on the ground going crazy, lighting these Waymos on fire. There's, there's something to show there, but there's also, like you said, this just funding from SEIU was on that rally stage. Obviously, they organized Churla, PSL. They're all here. They're all the money's coming here. Just bust it wide open, right?
None of these people have any special immunities,
right,
where they would be able to block their financial transactions from review. And there are domestic terrorism statutes that were used against MAGA. There were counterterrorism authorities. There were joint terrorism task forces that were spun up in Washington, D.C., that were chasing down people worshiping at a Catholic church, going to a school board meeting because they didn't like critical race theory, showing up, unmasked at a town hall meeting, and then sharing online that they aligned with a conservative viewpoint. And so this is an absolute must for this moment. But it's not those groups that have been arrested yet. It was independent journalist Anthony Cabassa, who was almost on the wrong side of the law. Walk us through it.
Yeah, no, and just to kind of like circle back, what I meant in the warning of, I don't think that I'm not telling like President Trump or the administration, hey, be careful how hard you go. What I'm actually saying, me personally, is we need to go harder. We need to open up these networks, because if we don't come after them, that's what I mean, is you're going to have all these apathetic people or sympathetic people that are like, okay, I'm going to vote this way. And if we're still kind of like at that 51-49 nation of like, oh, we're barely going to vote one way or the other. But what I will say is that on the flip,
you're saying bank. I got to draw a fine point on that.
Yeah.
What you're really saying is, assume you're going to lose it and go like crazy, go all in to fix the problems now.
That's exactly what I'm
hell or
saying.
high water, fix the problems now.
Do whatever it takes. Like literally do whatever it takes. We have, I think, Libs of TikTok on Twitter. She's actively, you know what she did? She's like, wait a minute. They came after us for January 6th. We're coming after them. So now they're cropping people's faces and they're running these, and it's all like citizen done. I'm like, well, why isn't the FBI? Like, remember sedition hunters when they were coming out? Start doing the same thing. So that's actually what I'm saying is we're not going hard enough. We need to go way harder. Assume we are going to lose. So do everything you can to make everything, to give the left, the Democrats, as little ammunition and as little funneling money organizations as you can, so that things don't escalate to the point where we just have nationwide riots again. There's like, well, we did our best, but unfortunately, somehow they're still being funded. No, open up investigations. And so, because what I will say too is, and this is what I was getting to, is that stupidly, these protesters are doing exactly what most people hate. They're starting to light things on fire. They're starting to assault police officers, because no matter what, doesn't matter if you agree with the immigration or not, the enforcement, you start seeing small businesses being torn down, automatically you're back to where you were. Because you're like, oh, I voted for President Trump. Oh man, but his thing, and then you're looking like, oh wait a minute, they're burning stuff again. Hell no, I'm still voting this way, because as bad as I feel that,
but
people
Trump has to fix it. Is your point?
Exactly, yeah. And so, because that's what I was talking about, the difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 is a lot of people felt like the riots nationwide were not handled well at the federal level, and so I think that that's what Trump is doing right this time, is that he's activating the National Guard and the U.S. Marines. And what people don't understand is that I'm down there, I'm video recording everything that's happening. A lot of people have this misconception, like even some Republicans are like, well, why isn't the National Guard tackling down protesters? That's not what they're there for. Trump still has to operate under federal authority. He can't just order federal agents to begin arresting people if they have no authority, unless maybe they're deputized by the city, which I don't see happening, because the LAPD, LASD, unions and leadership are in bed with Mayor Bass.
Something tells me that if this thing breaks worse, Trump isn't going to be checking the union contract.
Oh, right. No, exactly.
To tell the military what to do in LA.
That's what I'm saying. And so, so there was a lot of Republicans that were really pissed off that the National Guard wasn't actively pushing back. But what the National Guard allows local law enforcement to do is, you have these federal buildings that are being attacked and defaced and vandalized. So the federal agents are there to protect the federal buildings. What that now allows the local law enforcement to do is to go out there and make the arrests. They're out there controlling the mob. Because before, during the George Floyd riots, police were very scattered everywhere because they had to protect buildings and they had to protect government buildings. And so they're already spread thin because they don't have enough personnel. And so what the federal government allows them to do now is hey, we'll take care of the buildings. You guys just go out there and make the arrests. And so I ended up on, when was it? Sunday night. Today's like Wednesday, right? I think. But Sunday night, I ended up, it's called like a kettling. It's basically when they surround you, the police, after hours of telling everybody to disperse and that there's been an unlawful assembly declared, they say anyone left is subject to arrest. And it doesn't matter at that point if you're media or if you're not media. If you get kettled in, if you get completely surrounded by police, they then get on a loudspeaker and say everyone here is under arrest. All the time, though, I wouldn't say that there's even one time where it hasn't happened, but all the time they always let the media out. So you just come up, you show them your media credentials. They're like, hey, try not to get kettled in next time, and they'll let you go. But one thing I have noticed this time around versus other times is they're actually arresting people this time, and they're actually taking them down. I don't know what happens afterward. I don't know if they're just getting cited. Mayor Bass today put out a video saying that she wants the city to come united and to go clean up the mess that the protesters left. So she's asking the city. She's asking
the nerve,
us.
by the way, the nerve.
Absolutely. What do you pay taxes for?
But the thing is like, hey, how about instead, you're arresting dozens of people, hundreds of people. How about instead of just citing them, giving them a slap in the hand, and letting them go free, how about you give them mandatory community service hours, and you have them go clean up the mess? But of course, if
that'd be too much accountability.
Exactly,
Mayor
it would make too much sense.
Well, it's incredible stuff, and I really, really look forward to more of your reports right from the scene. But from the destruction of Los Angeles to the destruction of the globe we go, because Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard put out a video that really caught my attention this week. Take a listen.
A single nuclear weapon today could kill millions in just minutes. Just one of these nuclear bombs would vaporize everything at its core: people, buildings, life itself. The shockwave would crush structures miles away, killing and maiming countless people. And then comes the fallout. Radioactive poison spreading through the air, water, and soil, condemning survivors to agonizing deaths or lifelong suffering. A nuclear winter could follow, with smoke and ash completely blocking the sun, plunging the world into darkness and cold, killing crops and starving billions. Acid rain would scar the earth, wiping out entire ecosystems. This isn't some made-up science fiction story. This is the reality of what's at stake, what we are facing now. Because as we stand here today, closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation than ever before, political elite and warmongers are carelessly fomenting fear and tensions between nuclear powers. Perhaps it's because they are confident that they will have access to nuclear shelters for themselves and for their families that regular people won't have access to. So it's up to us, the people, to speak up and demand an end to this madness. We must reject this path to nuclear war and work toward a world where no one has to live in fear of a nuclear holocaust.
Every person I talked to who watched that video saw something different in it, drew something different from it. What I saw was a woman who understands foreign policy, who understands the risk that comes with excessive entanglement in these forever wars that can turn into powder kegs, someone who appreciated that when America is in battle, we must vanquish any foe and we must preserve the cause of freedom. But at the same time, being in a fisticuffs with other nuclear powers is deeply unwise. What did you take from it, Vish?
My take was that this was some kind of soft signal to the world that, like, that the Trump administration will not allow Iran to have a nuclear
You think
weapon.
this was an Iran message?
I think it was an
I
Iran
thought it was a
message.
Russia message. I thought it was a message from Tulsi Gabbard to the world saying, look, we need to resolve this Russia-Ukraine war without blowing up the planet Earth 3 times over. You think it was get ready for the offense against Iran?
Yes, I think it will, and we're already getting reports that Israel is prepping for something against Iran, just recently. So I think that this is a calm down to Israel, like, hey, don't move. We will make sure. This is how seriously we take it. So don't make a move on Iran.
Anthony Cabassa, what did you think when you saw your director of national intelligence warn you about nuclear war?
Yeah, so I actually hadn't seen it until I almost before we got on the show, and what the reports that I was reading was the same as you, was that it looks like Israel's getting ready to attack Iran. And there's all these reports. First, it kind of started with like military drawdowns. They were putting bases in the Middle East at the highest alert. And then right before I came in, as I was parking, I got a notification saying that all military members' families across the entire Middle East are being evacuated from the Middle East. So, I mean, I track a lot of these they're called like open intel
Sure.
pages that just, they're able to kind of put pieces together. And whenever I've seen serious attacks get heightened, that's when you usually see airspaces being closed down, embassies being put alert, people being evacuated, and then usually a strike happens. So I'm actually kind of on the side of Vish. I think that it wasn't an accident that video came out specifically today, because all signs are leading to Israel's getting ready to strike Iran, which is, Israel's already published reports saying that Netanyahu is saying, we're going to strike whether a deal is made with Iran or not. We just can't do it. And then today also, Pete Hegseth confirmed that there's used intel that they know that Iran is set to finalize a nuclear weapon. So, I mean, you put out what Pete Hegseth is doing, the reports that embassies are on high alert, the fact that military members' family are being evacuated, and then now you have this video talking about nuclear fallout. I think Tulsi, I don't think that she put it out as, hey, I'm telling you guys we're about to go to war. I think she put it out, like you said, like, hey, we need to calm down, and kind of sending that message to Israel.
To settle the horses.
It's like, hey, we need to, if you guys go in there and just strike Iran, you guys are not thinking about the long term. You're not thinking that, because I was just listening to a report. I was watching Tim Pool on the drive down to the studio, and he was talking about how Iran signed a treaty with Russia, like saying that they're willing to back each other out 3 days before President Trump became president, assumed the office on January 17th of this year. So I'm just kind of like, tinfoil hat here. Hopefully I'm allowed to just kind of speak freely, but I'm thinking to myself, now we've got National Guard deploying to cities. We've got U.S. Marines being trained and National Guardsmen being trained to control protests. I'm thinking to myself, going back to your question, are things about to get worse? If you think the protests are bad now, wait till the new King's Day, funded by Walmart, not, allegedly, don't come after us legally. Wait till the anti-war protesters start coming out. And those are going to be left and right. These are going to be people that are like, no more forever wars, And so I think that we're headed into a summer of not just civil unrest, but I think global unrest.
What a cliffhanger for our episode. Yes, it was a member of the Walton family. Where can people continue to follow your journalism?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on all my socials, I'm on Truth, I'm on Gab, I'm on everything TikTok. Just go by Informed with Anthony. So like you're being informed with Anthony, and then just on my X is the only anomaly there with just my name, Anthony Cabassa _
Well, thanks so much for being with us. And before we go, folks, there's some real momentum in the fight for affordable health care. President Trump signed a powerful executive order to drive down prescription drug prices across the board. But here's the thing. While the bureaucracy drags its feet, one pharmacy isn't waiting around. All Family Pharmacy is stepping up now with real action to support the president's vision and give Americans more control over their health care. From now through the end of June, they're running a summer sale. Get 20% off site-wide. And here's what I love. No insurance needed. They connect you right with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship prescriptions directly to your door fast. Whether you're looking for ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, emergency kits, or just your daily meds, it's time to stock up and save. If you believe in being prepared and you believe in medical freedom, this is your pharmacy. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt and use promo code MATT20 for 20% off your order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt, code MATT20. Let's push back on Big Pharma and make America healthy again. We'll be back next week.
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe, and watch today.
I'm so excited when we get our Merryweather Farm shipments in. You get a beautiful piece of ribeye. Look at that marbling. Now, I take it out of the package, let it get down to room temperature. All I've got on here is a little salt, a little pepper, and then a little avocado oil. And then I've had my pan preheating with a little oil.
Head to merryweatherfarms.com and enter promo code MATTG for 15% off your